left Nobby's Beach with all this big support crew behind you, your son, as we said, rubbing grease on your body, getting you prepared. Um, it was a long journey, as you said. You had a full night, the next full day, through the night. Um, there was a southerly storm coming halfway through the journey. And at this point in time, you were getting stung a fair bit by blue bottles and started to have some quite bad hallucinations. Do you want to talk to the listeners about what that was like, coming up against that in the back end of that swim?
Yeah, so critical to the logistics of a swim when you take off is a weather window. And so we were looking for a 40-hour weather window. It took us a long time to get that. We had 2 false starts. Finally, we settled on a weather window, and not as calm as I would have liked it, or the conditions weren't that perfect. I'd asked for the organisers to look for a time when we don't have a strong northeaster, because that brings in the blue bottles. And my biggest fear was coming into a huge patch of blue bottles and then being disabled from that. So they'll work on your muscles and it disables your muscles, and you have to pull the swim if that happens. So we lessened the parameters around the swim. It can be a little rougher. Okay, I'll come in on a northeaster. So we had to find this weather window. They found one. We're ready to go. There was a front due to come up after 40 hours from the south, and it was going to be pretty hairy, but we could make it inside the 40 hours. So we set off out of Nobby's, as you say, met the boat a couple of kilometres off, and it was really quite nice. It was calmish. The sun was coming up. It's a really nice sunrise. I could see big shivers of stingrays, and if you've ever seen 100 stingrays swimming together as one, it is something special to see. I saw those. Later on, the boat captain told me that in his experience, that's where all the sharks are. But I think there's a bit of inherent, not learned fear. I think it's a little irrational. He was worried about it. I wasn't, because I didn't know about it. I swam through the day. I started getting stung pretty well straight away, blue bottles, and there's nothing I could have done about them. Peeling them off, swearing loudly every time, that kind of takes a bit of the sting away. But they started getting and gathering around my neck. Of course, they're across your face, everywhere else, and they'll catch you. But I was getting away with it, and they weren't affecting my muscles. They weren't affecting my stroke. I was managing them. So we swam all day. The sun was setting. I knew it was going to be a tough night. I still had plenty of stings on me, but I went into the night expecting a really tough time. And I've told a few other people that I live on the beach, and straight out there I can see the ocean. And I've been looking there for years thinking, soon I'm going to be 10 kilometres off the coast in the water on my own. That's going to be a tough night. There's no two ways about it. Your imagination works, all the things you can't even think of, you're worried about in deep black water. But it wasn't the case. It turned out to be a sensationally beautiful night. Incredibly, I've talked about bioluminescence and the stars and the lack of a horizon. And I was completely distracted all through the night, apart from the blue bottle stings. And I estimate they were probably every 20 minutes. The next morning, when the sun came up again, I was getting a little fatigued, more than a little fatigued. That front had started to move up quicker than what we'd all thought, and it was coming in much earlier. I was 16 kilometres off the coast, and off the coast of Palm Beach, and the decision was made, not by me, by others, to get in closer, because we wanted to be safer when that front comes through, and if I needed to get out of the water, I could. And so we moved in, started to swim towards Palm Beach. They told me there's a beach over there, and I couldn't work out. I couldn't see it. I couldn't see Nobby's. I couldn't see a lighthouse. I know these things are there, but I couldn't see them. So I couldn't work out. I couldn't rationalise what they were saying. Palm Beach is there. We'll swim towards Palm Beach and see how we go. And it frustrated me. That, with fatigue and all the stings, I started to hallucinate, and you get into a pretty crappy sort of a state. And for me, it was like crash rails on a freeway either side. And as I swim towards my target, as I was told, then the crash rail, I'd go towards that, veer off the crash rail and here and there. It doesn't make any sense now. It didn't make any then. But the positive thing of it was that part of that hallucination was that everybody else was in the water as well. So it wasn't me. It was like a training swim. I was leading. So that's not like a training swim, because usually I'm at the back. But I was leading. Everyone else is in the water. So I thought, if I'm getting constantly stung by these blue bottles, everybody else is as well. So just have to deal with it, cop it sweet, move on. Didn't stop every time I get stung. I had to stop, pull it off, and tried to get it away from my fingers and out of my face and what have you. And it was building up around my neck. And so my neck was swollen from all of these stings. And it was starting to crack and it was getting pretty painful. But still the hallucinations were going and I couldn't get any closer. What had actually happened is the horse breed started to empty out from high to low tide, and I was swimming into that current, that tidal shift. And so I was stuck there swimming, and it took another 5 or 6 hours. By the time we'd come in close enough to the beach, the decision was made to finish at Palm Beach, at Sydney Beach. Because that storm was still coming up, and I could see the track now laid over a storm tracker, that it was the right thing to do, get out of the way. And when I finally made it ashore, that storm came through very soon after. So the decision was made correctly, get me out of harm's way. At first, it was just to get me closer. I wouldn't have liked to try to swim into a storm, fatigued, hallucinating, 16 kilometres out of sea. That would have been reckless, and I don't think that would have been a very successful swim.
Yeah, I think my first encounter